Hey guys, how you good? How you doing? Let's get that audio check done real quick. Turn on another one of my monitors. I don't know why I didn't have that on. Right. All right. Let's see. I'm just looking for an audio. Audio's good. Thank you very much. You guys know I have the dynamic duo in the stage right now. You know who they are. AlfaVedic. I've been a guest on their show 3, 4, 5 times. I'm not really sure. Had about a 3-year relationship. Really great guys. They decided to come on my show when I invited them to basically give us a rundown on the work they've done, and because they're not just on YouTube and what they do. I was going through their catalog last night on YouTube. I had no idea that they had interviewed so many people that I'm familiar with, and so we're going to discuss that. As far as, hey, Perceiver, how you doing? Moderators, thank you very much. Right before I bring my guests in, I have just one announcement. You already know Virginia Beach is this week. Virginia Beach is going to be over something very serious. Just to give you a taste about what we're going to be talking about was my last video on practicing immortality. But I can't record the session, and it's not just for the personal. We're going to be doing personal applications instead of just general material like that was in the video. The reason this cannot be recorded and put onto YouTube is because I'm going to show the attendants my Office software. I'm going to show them that there is a difference between predictions and inducing events to occur in our field, and showing using software when exactly we can make these events occur in our lives. Yeah, the world we live in is not the world you're taught. There is no way the Office software could consistently do what it does, and you're living in the world that you're told you're living in. Both cannot be true. And because I can show applications, and because I can live the way I'm living, and because I can make events occur in the way that I need them to do, and I can even prognosticate their exact timing because of things that I have introduced into the field, then the software is very real to me. Then that means I cannot be living in that world. Something else is going on. So Virginia Beach is going to be intense, but we can't record it. Now, as far as that, I have got to introduce Mike Winter and Dr. Bear Lando, who I have been mispronouncing his name for like 3 years, and I apologize.
Okay.
How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Hey, no worries about the name. Nobody can pronounce my name properly with the spelling, so I'm used to it. But hey, good to see you, Jason. And thanks for having us on. And it's always, you're always one of our audience's biggest favorites there. So really good to be with you on your platform.
Yeah, man. How you doing, Mike?
Oh, I'm great, man. Just another great day, beautiful day up here on the Smith River. No complaints. Good to be with you today.
Appalachian Mountains, right?
No, actually, we live in the Six Rivers National Forest on the border of California and Oregon. So on the other side, right up from the Pacific Ocean, near about 2.5 hours west of Mount Shasta.
Really? Where did I get Appalachian Mountains from? That's not
I have no idea.
Bear, you don't live there?
Yeah, I do. In fact, Mike and I live pretty close to each other. As a crow flies, we're really close. But I live up a remote canyon where it's on a river and it's off grid, miles and miles from power lines and everything. And then if I look out my window here, there's a mountain range, and right on the other side of a mountain range is a really cool little country one general store town called Gasky, which is where Mike lives. So it takes a while to get in the car and drive there, and get to the main roads, but we live pretty close to each other. And
Okay.
like Mike says, it's one of the largest nature areas in the whole country. And we live on the purest river in the whole country. And we have a off-grid farm here and do herbal medicinal. So We want pristine surroundings and water and everything for what we grow. And we don't want to be around all the Wi-Fi frequencies and stuff either.
Man, it's hard to get away. I mean, in the deserts of New Mexico and Arizona and West Texas, they're installing giant cactuses that are hollow with this Wi-Fi stuff in them, these 5G towers. And I've already traveled to different parts of the United States and saw what was obviously a pine tree, made to look like a pine tree, but it's just a 5G tower. It's getting hot. Yeah, they're putting them everywhere.
And of course, those towers were originally developed as military-grade weapons. And isn't it a great deal that now that's what powers up all our communication systems?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
That, and it's also creating a large network to visualize in a digital format, mapping out the world, so that through these connections, these hyper connections, and the speed now that they have, they can literally map out a simulated reality of the simulated reality, so that they can play their war games and sort of figure out, what, based on the behavior of each user, with, as Bear affectionately calls, our fifth appendage, our smartphone, within this, schematic, right, of all the 5G towers pinging everybody, especially like in the cities where they're all the real, the 5G that are all very close to each other. They can actually get a visualization of the activity going on, and then put that through their systems to formulate, to differently, literally war game things out, like what people will do if they try this and that, based on the reactions of what people are doing with their phones. So yeah, you can see that when you get on Google Maps, and you're just looking to see where, while you're driving, where you'll see a red zone. And they know that because all the phones on Google Maps are not moving right there. So they can tell where the traffic is. That's just like a really basic, example of what they're doing with this technology, but I'm sure it's way more advanced than that now.
Oh yeah, I've already read pieces in technology magazines where law enforcement and military just use the Wi-Fi, residential Wi-Fi in your own house, to show exactly where your body signatures are in your house while vans are going through the neighborhood. They can literally map out your entire house with the Wi-Fi and know where everybody is. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, they're so paranoid, and they're in so much fear in pushing this technocracy at such a point that it's causing, and I know you see this in your community, just a mass awakening around this. And so many people are just like, enough's enough. So they're the ones that are stuck in this. And this is something, it's a massive theme with AlfaCast. And what we talk about is they're stuck in a very linear, very remedial type of scientism based on a reductionist materialism. Whereas what we do through agriculture and health and wellness and all that we engage with, we play with the real sciences, which are qualitative and based on the user and our own connection to spirit. And they're disconnected from that. And in a way, they are much weaker, and thus they are in massive fear.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I know you guys are really into the health and wellness, and from a totally different perspective. I know that you shun the pharmaceutical deals, but telling my moderators right now, we're not trying to entertain any chat that's going to get us triggered. But I mean, everything can be said in code. We already know. We just don't need. They just got a strike on their channel for having a guest that kind of didn't have filters. It's all right. It's I got a strike on my channel. It happens. It's just but yeah, just moderators, be careful about what you allow in the chat.
We've gotten a lot more than one strike over the last few years. Unfortunately, or fortunately, my wheelhouse is, bioterrain medicine and my years in practice with that. And when this whole last nonsense happened, in 2020, I got out a little bit more public about what I had learned about how things really work in the world of microbes and medicine, and is featured in some documentaries and such. And so that sort of launched us out there, but that also made us public enemy number one, because we're really exposing a lot about their sacred cows, which keeps their whole system of medicine going. So we have learned how to talk in code. We'll use YouTube as long as we can. And our last episode, our most recent strike, I was just as much responsible because our guest kind of stimulated my triggered, the way I feel about a lot of things. So it was a great interview, but not a good combination for staying uncensored.
Oh, I understand triggering. Nobody, listen, I'm the road rager. I'm the guy that will do a 2-hour video apologizing to my community about, you know what, I'm just not going to mess with these guys, Billy Carson and Graham Hancock. I'm going to leave it alone. And all I got to do is see one comment about something new they put out that's BS. I'm going off all over again. So believe me, when it comes to triggering, I already know.
Well,
go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say one thing that we appreciate about you, and what we always strive to have with our guests, is authenticity and a sincere seeking of truth. And if we're exposed to something that is counter to what we've said, and it is actually more truthful and based on facts, we'll fix our record, right? But you'll notice with those kind of guys, they don't tend to ever fix their record, so it makes you wonder about them. But anyways, Bear, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to even waste their time with them. But you're absolutely right. It would do them a lot of service and totally neutralize me if they just put out a presentation totally adopting the facts, citing the same sources I do. I wouldn't even be mad about it. Wouldn't even sue them. I mean, I gave all that data to the public for free, and then they totally changed their mind about it. But the problem is they can't do it because of everything that's attached to those ideas.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I like to translate concepts into applications, because without applications, a concept is just a really interesting intellectual idea. And I'm good at promoting intellectual ideas, but I don't really get sick often. And I'm in really good health. Don't take me any medicines whatsoever. I don't even like taking an ibuprofen or a pill. Now, in the past and repetitively, because I have hyperdontia, it's not a disease or anything. It's a genetic condition. And Dawn has been fascinated with it. I am not. I've been dealing with it my entire life. But I never stopped growing teeth. And my second set of teeth, my adult teeth, have been gone for decades. I have all new teeth. I grow in new molars, and if teeth aren't removed fast enough, I grow canines. And the reason they're canines, not canine teeth, but literal canine sharp fangs, because the roots and teeth are just as strong as the teeth themselves. So when a new tooth grows, it grows in the root. It became super sharp. And then when it starts pushing up against the other tooth, which isn't even old, it's only 3 or 4 years old too, it has to be removed to let it in. But by that time it happens, it's a fang. So I have to have that removed. So I have a very unique condition. That's what it is. It's called hyperdontia. I'm lucky that I don't have the hyperdontia that you see in magazines where people's teeth are going in all different directions. Mine are very structured. They come in, and it's a matter of personal embarrassment. I've showed Dawn, and she was fascinated how perfect they are. I have double rows of teeth in my mouth. But the reason I'm telling you this is because the only medicine that I've ever taken in my life is really pain medicine. Because when I'm teething, when new teeth are coming in before I can actually go and have the earlier teeth removed, I'm in a lot of pain. So Dawn has helped me out with that in the past, and that's the only medicine I've ever needed, was just the pain pills to get through. So moving all that to the side, let's just assume that, let's say that I get some type of cold. Let's say what is really happening when I spend 2 or 3 days working on my property, getting a lot of things done. I'm inhaling a lot of cold air. My body's 98 point something degrees. I feel great. And then after I finish this physical activity, I'm laying up watching movies, watching TV. I'm resting my body. And then all of a sudden I develop all these symptoms. Maybe I have a flu. What exactly is happening? Because it's happened to me before. They're very temporary for me. But what exactly is happening? What can the common person do what is just going? What is the dynamic going on? It sounds like a dumb, innocent, dumb question, but if everything is the opposite of what we've been told is actually happening, in order for the pharmaceutical companies to make a buck, what exactly is going on, and what is the best thing that we can do in just the flu situation?
Well, colds and flus are a great example because they're most ubiquitous as far as what people experience, routinely. And it used to be that those conditions would predominantly occur in the winter months, and there's a reason for that. But before we get into that, in Chinese medicine, we understand that the body needs to be in a homeostasis, which includes temperature. And one of those variables that can kind of set the bioterrain. When I talk about bioterrain, we're talking about a living ecology that is what our biology represents and in fact is. And it's also a replication, a microcosm of the larger realm. So that old adage, know yourself, you'll know the universe. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. So if you catch a cold, so to speak, you can't catch anything, but let's just say you're in some cold temperatures, you're exposed for a while, and it actually internalizes to the point where that variable having to do with your, warmth equilibrium is thrown off. You can have symptoms that'll occur from that because it can trigger innate organisms that live within us to start going to work. They go through predictable stages, 16 stages. And I watched this for, decades under thousands of people's blood under the microscope. And then those guys, as they're just trying to get the terrain right, they can actually produce some symptoms, even though they aren't pathogens in the process. But the most common occurrence for a so-called cold or a flu is that your body is composting. Now, if you go through the seasons and it's autumn and the leaves are falling from the leaves and everything, and then we set into winter, well, nature just has normal mechanisms with mycelium, with microbes, and all sorts of little creatures where they digest all the stuff from the summer months, decompose it, and then return it to the soil so we can have a nice growing season following. Now, in the case of the body, we do the same thing. Since we are a microcosm of nature, we typically compost more in the winter months, even if you live in a relatively moderate climate. And that decomposting requires just cleaning up all the debris and everything that you've collected in your body. The cleaner your lifestyle is, the less of a job you'll have, which means you might not even have to have a decomposting or cold experience. But what happens is these organisms inside of us, just like, flies landing on a dead deer in the forest, they're going to, turn into little crawling things that will decompose the animal. And it's the same thing that happens within inside of us. So when that is happening, then your body's going to have to eliminate a lot of the, the toxins that build up, the old stuff that needs to be excreted from your body. And, you're going to do it through your mucous membranes. You might have to do it through getting the runs. All your elimination organs are going to pick up the slack. Your body's skin is the largest elimination organ. Some people might even get skin symptoms if other drainage channels are not doing their job, and then the skin has to pick up more work. So when you understand the body and how it works, let's just say somebody comes in, they say, "Hey, doc, I got a cold. What can you do for me?" We're going to understand that everybody's a little different, so there's no recipe approach. But what we are going to do is assess the bioterrain and help support the body do what it's trying to do so you can just get through the symptoms quicker. But more importantly, do it in a way where your body is left in a healthier state so you don't have to have any buildup of things that are going to create worse expressions biologically down the road.
Man, so essentially what you're telling me is that my body is already going to deal with these things, and that this mucus and breaking out in the sweat and all these things are actually very beneficial to me. They're my body's way of removing things that I didn't need to take medicine for.
Exactly. And you probably experience it after you have a so-called cold or a flu, when you're on the other side, don't you kind of curiously feel a lot better than you did before? It's kind of like after a big rainstorm and the sky's clear, you go outside, the air's crisp, and everything's nice and light and bright. It's the same thing in your body. You just had a nice house cleaning, and the result is you're healthier for it. So bioterrain medicine understands that the body is doing what it's designed to do, and nature does not create disease, nor does it create pathogens in the form of parasites or microbes that are deliberately making you sick. Some of those are opportunistic, and some of them are very functional and live inside of us all the time already.
And then there are viruses which have never been isolated or proven to exist.
Well, I'm a little offended by your shirt, Mike.
Yeah, viruses don't cause diarrhea. Denny's does.
I love Denny's. I have Denny's is like the closest thing. I live way out in the country, so it's a long drive just to get to the interstate from this country road, and then the interstate. And then I got to go down the interstate to get to the city. And one of the first things on the left is Denny's, and Denny's is like it's a popular haunt of mine. So,
well,
when people are passing through Texas, it's Denny's that often, it's just if you're gonna be on the interstate, there's no sense for you to get off of it, and you don't need to come out here because there's a lot of people out here don't really take to strangers. So
yeah,
let's just meet at Denny's.
We joke about that up here too, or we do the thing. Well, you ain't from around these parts, are you? There, spit, But yeah, no, it's one thing we talk about. Obviously, Denny's is horrendous for you, Jason. Eating that stuff is mass agricultural GMO food with tons of God knows what of preservatives and all the stuff in it. But if you can get some true enjoyment out of it every now and then, and really have a beneficial experience in terms of your spirit, like, wow, I really love this, you can transmute a lot of that point. That's what your body's doing when you're having this composting. Our bodies are absolutely the most perfect, brilliant machine on the planet. And
I believe that. I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that because of applications. I believe that because of what I have seen my body do. I believe that because I have seen what pure intention has done for men who were put on death cell blocks in the Texas prison system, who were told that they had incurable diseases, and they refused that, and they were put on cell blocks to die with all the other guys that were there. I have seen men literally purge themselves from tuberculosis simply by will alone, drinking water, and I have smelled it. I watched the pus and mucus come out of their skin. I watched their buddies come and help change the sheets and the clothes, and the whole cell block stunk of that shit to high heaven. I've watched, and for whatever reason, some of them are Catholic, some of them are just Protestant, whatever reason they affixed to what was healing them, I watched as the body purged it. I was there. Maximum security is a terrible environment, especially if for those guys who came down with really serious physical maladies. But I also watched that those who completely refused a fate that was imposed upon them by a diagnosis. They just absolutely refused it, took matters into their own hands, made peace with their higher power, and did whatever. I've seen guys drink bottles of water and believe that was medicine, and it became medicine for them. I watched it. I was there.
So, Jason, the points you're making are critical because in bioterrain medicine, we're not just talking about microbes and organs and all the things that are happening on a biological level, but it also explains how things precipitate biologically from the etheric mechanisms. So bioterrain medicine practiced in its thorough capacity is going to also work on those other realms that we call etheric, the mental plane, the emotional plane. And we can not just explain, but work with those planes very aggressively to, let's just say, manipulate things before they even become physical. And in order to understand what I'm talking about, if you look into the field of waveform mechanics, It's an understanding of what the old alchemists understood very well centuries ago. And the different etheric realms are really a way that nature creates, or how things come from our creator. The only thing that can precipitate matter or physicality, step one, is an idea. An idea or a thinking event is actually an electrical event that creates a polarization or a resonance. That resonance, which is at that first level we call the hydrogen or fire element in the old alchemical language, then coagulates at the next nitrogen level down. That coagulation goes to a fermentation process, goes down to the water element, or what we call the oxygen element. That reaches the South Pole, and it's a real electrical apparatus, the larger realm in our bodies included. And then that precipitates from our ideas exactly, what our biology is going to be, what our experiences are going to be. We could elaborate much greater on that as far as how you would work with that, and that is in true fact. But it explains exactly what you're talking about, how somebody with an intention and just the emotion behind it, in order to make something real, that is going to become a real physical event or material.
Yeah, I haven't really researched this type of stuff. I'm just speaking from personal experience, what I saw, and I know a lot of other people that were there with me had translated that as something else, and they felt it was Jesus healed them. They felt it was God healed them. They felt that it was the Mother Mary's blessing upon their soul because of their faith in Jesus. However they twisted the belief up, however it was woven to as something acceptable in their mind. But I saw it from a different perspective. I saw it very clearly from what Jesus was. Jesus rebuked a lot of people, and over and over in the narrative, we see that people tried to touch the hem of his cloak, of his robe. People tried to touch him. They tried to engage with him because they thought there was going to be power in that. If Jesus would just look at me, I would be healed. And over and over, Jesus had turned the table on everybody and told them that by your faith you were healed. He even specifically told somebody, "It says I have healed. I did not heal you," and yet the person was totally healed. And yeah, he rebuked them over and over. Now, I'm not saying the story is real, and I'm not sitting here advocating saying that the story is total BS either. My only position is that the story of Jesus, as put out in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, is not what really happened. Now, these were ex post facto inventions. That there really was a Jesus, that there really was some major event that did occur at that time, I'm not disputing. My only contention on my channel with all my critical videos is that the Matthew, Mark, Luke versions are not the versions that were known to the early Christian writers. They came later. So anyway, I digress. But when it comes to this whole healing deal, the only really experience I have in the intellectual realm is a book I read about the magical structuring of peptides, and how peptides are like these amazing building blocks based off aminos and branch chain aminos, and how peptides have the secret coding to cure everything in reality that can possibly affect the human body. And that you don't have to know about that, but this guy that wrote this book had showed, he says, look, it doesn't matter what your diet and eating. He says, if you really have an intrinsic belief that your body can heal you of something, it doesn't matter what your body is suffering. The peptides will synthesize whatever the body needs in order to make that happen. And it was just a really intriguing study that I had read, and it always stuck in my mind. I was like, wow, the human avatar truly is divine. It's equal to the immortal within if you just use it that way. So, I mean, that's the extent of my medical knowledge, is just knowing that I'm going to be all right. It's just knowing that all I have to do is rely on the interface between the immortal within and the avatar that I'm borrowing right now. They're going to work together to get rid of everything that I don't need. So, I mean, that's the extent of my knowledge on it.
Well, peptides, I would put in a category of natural design. There is a natural design for the realm and us as replicates of it. And that natural design has all the software and everything that we need to have an experience with. We do have the prerogative of having erroneous belief systems, toxic emotions, and things that will disrupt the actual energetics that put those sequences of peptides, DNA configurations, and everything in place. So when we talk about peptides and when we talk about DNA, initially you mentioned genetics in your condition. Well, those are all after effects. Now, if we were to return to a pure state in thought and emotion, just natural design would take over. We could run around in a perfect vehicle, have our experience, and go home when we are done here. On the other hand, if we create synthetic overlays, maybe similar, to the overlays that some other folks put within this realm in order to create cycles that are working against us, or create, all the things that you talk about on your show. Well, we have the ability to do it within our own individual realm. But the main takeaway here is that there is nothing deterministic about what we experience or the health of our bodies. It is all within our own consciousness.
I'll just add that the black magic around Covidius erectus, as Bear calls it in 2020, was exactly that. The mass media apparatus related to big tech drove fear to a point where it was a self-appointed apocrypha, if you will, for those who either figured out, whoa, I got this. I will not have these symptoms. I'm good. I don't need to wear a mask because I'm in control here. Or those who went into total fear and then had the symptoms of losing their breath and going to all that stuff purely from what they would call a nocebo effect, as Bear's saying. And that is, as you were saying, Jason, is the power of our consciousness and our will over our own physiology. And in terms of the water, I would just add this, we're coming to a lot better understanding around the nature of water in terms of Jared Pollack's, research and this idea of structured water. And we talk about primary water and its original, how it's born from deep in the earth, etc. But this water is the memory. It's the memory of nature, and it holds our consciousness in a way where, we speak to it or we put our intentions into it and then we drink it. Well, that water is now interfacing with our own structured water and is doing all sorts of magic within our own biology. So
you're triggering me, man. You're triggering me. Because what you're saying is, okay, I'm familiar with the Japanese doctor who did the cymatics, who showed the many experiments on water when focus groups were told to think terrible thoughts about the water and other focus groups were told to talk with each other about very positive things, and the water was exposed to that, and how the water absorbed those frequencies, and the structuring of the water itself when frozen in ice produced really grotesque forms and really sharp edges in the negative focus group. The positive focus group was very beautiful things that we have come to find out that can also be expressed in cymatics. So the reason I'm triggered about this is because I'm always trying to show my community that if something is true, then the obverse is true as well, but from a different vantage point. So if this bottle of water, no matter who manufactured it, no matter what they have put in it to harm me, no matter what, if focused intent can change the charge in the particles of the water and can change its structuring by me thinking about it, by me holding it, and me appreciating what it's going to do for my body. And if that's the case, then we already know that our controllers don't have the best intentions. So they set up this vast apparatus knowing that we're 80 to 85% water, knowing that we are surrounded by water, that the water that we ingest in our watery bodies is coming from areas that are also affected by the very things that they're putting into the field. through these towers, through whatever. So everything that is in the field becomes contaminated to us. And yet we are that very same substance. We are water. So if that's the case, then the opposite is true. If they can so easily harm us because we are water, then we should so easily also be able to neutralize that by thought alone.
Can I add one thing? And then I know Bear has some great stuff to talk about here. Is it's actually way more effort for them to do what they do versus as we instantly can change it.
Okay, I like that. Say, you're speaking my language. Carry on, Dr. Bear.
So this is where universal mechanics and understanding of universal mechanics really is handy, because if you look again at that etheric apparatus, and of course our conventional scientists say there's no such thing as ether, we just live in this void. That's another whole topic, but it has been well noted and demonstrated that there is an etheric substance. Just like fish swim around in water, we swim around in a medium as well. Now, the water medium in old alchemy was called the sound medium, or the chemistry medium. And that's because it was understood that water is a transmitting utility. It is the substance on that level that picks up all of the resonance and then carries it to the South Pole, which is the carbon pole, which then creates matter from that. And the cells of our body pick up that resonance through minerals that are capacitors in this electrical system. And in other words, they store the informational fields that are coming down through the water element. And then the cells of the body pick up that resonance, and that's how they create form and function from organic foodstuffs and also things that we pick up freely from the atmosphere. So when you understand what Mike's talking about, then the water element can be easily manipulated by each of us individually, and we do not have to succumb at all to what somebody else is programming for what they want our reality to be. I wanted to just add another quick little example, if I could, about how bodies work. I just, something caught my eye in the chat group here. Somebody was mentioning that they have a hiatal hernia. Well, hernias occur in different locations of the body, but each of them have a commonality in that they represent a dysfunction of the musculature of the body. And when that happens, then normal function is compromised. You know, you can have it in the inguinal area or the abdominal area, the hiatus, it doesn't matter. That's going to allow things to pooch out from their normal container, and it's going to create problems all over the place. Now, to understand muscles are the display panel for our neurology. Muscles incorporate an entire network in the natural design, and they share networks with organs and meridians and all sorts of things that are using the same plumbing, electricity, lymphatics and neurology in order to function. Now, if there is something deeper going on, say with an organ or something on one of those other fundamental planes that we're alluding to, then that muscle is going to be preferentially at times turned off by the body, because if there's an issue, for instance, with a vital organ, the body's hierarchy of needs is going to kick in. It's going to say, this organ's keeping us alive. This muscle over here in the abdomen is, not as vital. So we want to shunt all resources to the vital systems of the body that keep us alive. Now that muscle, when it's turned off, then that's going to, in the case of a hernia, allow maybe a pooching out of the abdominal wall and everything through the musculature. So the point I'm trying to make is, even in a musculoskeletal complaint, there are factors that go much, much deeper that would also be explained by bioterrain medicine. So if somebody comes in to see me with a hernia of any type, first thing I'm going to do is evaluate the musculature, then use that musculature to troubleshoot through the neurological mechanisms. What's the problem in the first place? You fix that, the muscle turns back on, and the hernia is remedied. So all of this ties in. There's no exception. And when we're having these discussions, people, of course, are going to say, well, what about, my Epstein-Barr? What about my hernia? What about rabies and so forth? And there's explanations for all those things in a very logical way. But more important, in those explanations, they have solutions that take us out of victim consciousness and put us back in the co-creator seat.
And let's just hope you have all your organs still, because we know they like to take out organs. Tonsils, you don't need those.
Yeah, appendix.
We'll just say this: it is so brutally archaic. Not to I know your channel's archaic, but in the way that of mainstream medicine, what a joke of what they are, and they obfuscate it with technology, right? With like gadgets and all these like gasmos and gadgets or gadgets and gizmos, excuse me, in the hospital when you go in. And my wife's an RN. I don't like to visit her in her place of work, but she is an angel there doing God's work to help advocate for these patients, because she's quite aware. And she's, there's just something she's been doing for almost 20 years. And she's come through an awakening like I have, but she's sticking in there to help these folks that, are in the hospital. But man, what a barbaric practice. Barbarism.
It's crazy. Sad. It's sad, but you are, so
sorry, that's the rant that I go on sometimes, Jason, because it hurts my soul. It hurts my soul when I see people suffering and they're going to these quote unquote officials. They're outsourcing to these doctors who supposedly have their best interests at heart. Do no harm, right? That was the oath they took.
Mm-hmm.
No. Instead, they're outside smoking cigarettes on their break and checking in on who's winning on the football game.
Yeah.
I
got two things before you go on, Doctor. You said something I got to bring to the table. You said something about polarity, something about the poles, something that went, and then it goes down to the southern carbon immerses. What exactly were you talking about right there? Because when you were speaking on the micro level, I saw something on the macro I want to draw to your attention, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, and that's why I always default back to waveform mechanics. There's a gentleman by the name of Walter Russell. He's not the only one, but he did a wonderful job helping us understand, the Western mind understand how these mechanics of creation work. And he explained very thoroughly how nothing can occur without an idea. I mean, imagine a world with never had an idea. We'd live on a barren plain. So now when that idea happens, that is an electrical event. Now, electricity, as we know, just from an electrician standpoint, is a polarization. And just like plucking on a guitar string, that polarization creates a yin yang, east west, and all the opposing polarities. That creates a resonance, just like a musical instrument. That resonance is then what creates the whole creative cycle. And then that resonance again goes down through those levels, and it is a north-south pole kind of affair, just like any electrical system, where you have to have conductance, you have a modifying induction element, then you have capacitance on the ground. And so when you're practicing medicine, you have to understand that, so that you can have a way to thoroughly assess that electrical apparatus and then find out which part of the mechanism is creating issues. And when you do that, all of a sudden you're out of the realm of conventional medicine that's just trying to override things with drugs or surgery. And at the same time, even in, we'll call it naturopathy or alternative medicine, a lot of times we're just practicing green allopathy, and that we're in the same belief system box, but just trying to do things a little less toxically with herbs and vitamins and things. When in reality, if you understand the mechanism, you can use some of those things, but you'll use them more intelligently in order to put the electricity right. And I could explain more how we can assess that electrical system, and how I did it on every single patient.
Okay, we can definitely talk about that. But you're describing a system to me like a cathode. You're describing a system to me that is it blew my mind when you first said it. I had to make sure that I was processing correctly, because in 1871, I've done 2 videos on this guy, but in 1871, a scientist came out and says, "Hey, look, ice ages are complete BS. We had glaciation, and it can be mapped by the distribution of errata, boulders, but there's never been an ice age. The scientific community has been hijacked by multimillionaires. This is not true." And he showed exactly a model of why the world is repeatedly destroyed, and that it is a reset that is necessary to bring balance back to what he considered the world being a living organism. Now, it's electrical based, and he said that all the valleys, the distribution of errata, all the geographical and geological evidence, the distribution of fossils, everything that he had brought into the deal shows ice age is out of the question. What is really happening is that there is a pressure buildup for a few thousand years, and humans spread all over the surface of the world, and this pressure buildup is the equatorial bulge. The equatorial bulge builds up, it builds up and builds up, and then it blows out. And as soon as it blows out, a mega tsunami from the southern hemisphere brings an electrical charge, and it's nothing but a wall of lightning and water that overtakes the northern hemisphere. And all the water, this is his model, and all the water, it's like 2 miles high now. It joins the north, floods everything out except for the very north where it stays frozen. The water goes in, and then the water balances back out. The pressure begins building. The equatorial bulge begins blowing up a little bit higher and higher and higher. He says it's a natural phenomenon. It's cyclical. His book is called Cyclical Flood Theory, and it was put out in 1871. It's never been disproven, and it's an amazing book. But he's describing the world as this cathode, and this release of pressure, and this exchange of electrical phenomena, and that the world is actually a water-based mechanism. It's crazy. I just wanted to say it because I'm seeing on the macro what you're perfectly describing on the micro, and it's just crazy to me. And maybe there's not an association. Maybe you can forgive me for artistic license, but this is what I'm seeing as you're describing all these things in like microbiology.
Well, what you're describing is exactly how the body works, because the body is a physical precipitation of a toroidal field. Now, those other etheric mechanisms that I was explaining actually create a toroidal field. And what you have is, from that original electrical impulse, a real spark that then will go through and precipitate at the South Pole, but simultaneously, all the informational fields that are gathered at the South Pole to create our experience are immediately dissolved and go back up into the anode again, as you describe it. And it's a self-canceling, simultaneous, moment by moment of a precipitation, compression of informational field cycle, and a radiation cycle that goes back up in the other direction. Now, right in the middle where those two meet is an equator, recognized within people that study toroidal mechanics. And then that equator is kind of a neutral zone. But if, let's just say in the case of our biology, say our consciousness is fixated more on the anode, more on that part from where everything comes from, then we're going to be less than grounded, and we're going to be like one of these kind of new agey etheric guys that, really doesn't, get a handle on creating their own experience as efficiently as possible. On the other hand, if you're into the superstition of materialism and thinking that that's all that is, now you're going to crystallize on that pole. But either way, when there's that kind of imbalance, that is in fact going to create that oblation at the equator. And in the case of a physical incarnation of a humanoid, then that's going to necessitate us coming back through the reincarnation cycle, giving it another shot and learning how to manage our energy better and keeping it balanced.
Yeah, I'll add one thing too. It's good to really try to visualize this in more of a 3D. So you have the toroid, right? The donut shape that is the sort of spherical shape, and then you have the opposite, the hyperboloid, which is the cone. So those are going back and forth between each other, and essentially the hyperboloid is what's bringing it in, or what's bringing it out, excuse me, and the toroid's bringing it in, and those are working constantly back and forth, and sort of, as Walter Russell says, an unwinding, a winding and an unwinding. And so that has to then release in probably certain cycles in that way, as Bear was saying. And I think the hyperboloid is a great example of probably us going inside. So we have the explosion, but then also we go inside, inner Earth at certain times. I'm a firm believer of that we go inside the Earth at certain cycles of our experience.
Yeah, it's also the Archaix model. It is the model that I promote from purely a simulated context, that this simulacrum, this simulation that we're in, or series of simulated environments, is toroidal in nature, and that what we call the world is actually a flat plane. It is the dead center of the toroid. But because a toroidal field has nothing but curvature geometry, we are deceived into believing. We look at this beautiful stellosphere. We are looking at the inside. We can call it a Dyson shell. We are literally seeing the optics of the inside of the field, and we're translating it as what we were told it is: galaxies and cosmoses and quasars and pulsars, and it's not. It's amazing toroidal field. This is all optics. I do not believe that there's Tesla sending anything into that. I would not be surprised to find out that this entire experience is a simulated toroidal environment, an energy field that is suspended in water. I wouldn't even be surprised.
You said another important word there, which is pressure. And pressure, when we have an imbalance, is going to build up. And it's not only going to create illness in the physical body or in the larger realm, amongst collectives of people, but it's going to, in the case of biology, create a shelf life for our body if we don't correct that pressure buildup. And that's what happens, when we come to the conclusion of a particular embodiment. However, while we're in a body, that pressure builds up constantly relative to insults to our psyche. And this explains how things get translated from the level of the psyche, the level of consciousness, into the body. And when we have toxic emotions, false belief systems and things, then those create pressure buildups. Now, the body doesn't just put things right on the bioterrain to help us decompose toxins and things so we can be healthier physically, but it also has those same mechanisms that release pressure that builds up in the psyche. So say you have an event, you lose a loved one or some such thing, and that is going to be quite an insult to the psyche. It's going to create that pressure buildup. And so what the body does, and this is in the realm of New German medicine, if you've ever heard of that term, it's a very sophisticated taxonomy of disease based on how neurology, psyche, consciousness, and everything works together. And it's the only system of medicine that's been scientifically proven over and over and over again with CAT scans and such. So in this situation, say you had that loss of a loved one, well, the body then is going to translate that to a particular area of the brain, the neurology, that is going to trigger a corresponding body part to maybe grow something, or to have something else that a medic would come along and say, oh, you have such and such a disease or cancer or some such thing. But what it is, if you understand it, it's a biological expression. And when you understand every disease from that level, you see that it's a holographic representation of what's happening on the psyche. And then it's also designed to go full circle in 2 different phases. And you come out the end healed, not only in psyche, but in body. Now, sometimes we have these hanging conflicts where maybe the biotrain is lacking some physical resource or some other such thing, or maybe a person isn't really ready to understand the connection between, mind, body, spirit. And then that 2 cycle phase gets hung up, and then these physical things like a growth can actually take you out. But if you understand where it comes from, you can help the person understand what precipitated on every level, then manage the bioterrain so that it can get the heck out of that cycle that's designed to heal, so that it doesn't persist and actually become very problematic.
Huh. So answer me this. How would this be applied to something we have not discussed yet, but I want to bring to the table because I'm entertaining it, because I've come into contact with some information that's very compelling to me, that this pressure isn't the type of pressure that we've been told it is. I mean, I've been cut many times and I never had blood just blow out of my body, because it's almost as if there's still something keeping it in. Is there a negative pressure imposed upon the body? Is there another dynamic operative here that literally keeps all our body fluids going, and it's not the pressure that we've been thinking it is? Is the heart not a pump?
Well, the heart is not a pump. And Mike, if you have something to say, sorry.
I was just going to say it's not gravity.
Okay, yeah, not gravity either. The heart is a toroidal field, a microcosm of our overall body. And if you look at embryologically how the heart forms, the heart does not form until blood cells form and other elements. And then those create a flux along a spiral toroidal kind of field mechanics. And then the tissue of the heart actually forms according to that same internal pathway that's happening through the movement of energy, first represented by smaller elements, and then to create the actual tissue, the heart. And if you understand, for instance, you take the left ventricle of the heart and you look at the thickness of the ventricular wall, and then you look at the pressure that it would have to undergo in order to, in one squirt, get all the blood through the terminal capillaries and so forth. Well, you'd explode the ventricle after one try. So it's a whole vortex mechanics that's actually happening. When you get into the work of Victor Schomburger and people like that, they explain exactly, what we're meaning with vortex mechanics. But pressure differentials, what we're talking about in the human body is an equilibrium between the outer, it's not really outer, but if we want to compartmentalize, the outer ether and our internal ether. And when there's a discrepancy between that, it creates a pressure differential, then you have problems. So in the field of acupuncture, for instance, what we're doing is using the meridians, which are those conduits that create a constant feedback communication with the external environment to create an equilibrium between ourselves and the environment. So pressure differentials are there, and illnesses of any types are there to alert us that there is a discrepancy between those two zones, and that's in fact contributing to what we're feeling that we call illness.
I was just thinking too, Jason and Barry, you're talking about New German medicine and the biological expression, and what happens oftentimes when you have a really bad fever. You have, there's transcendental conscious experience, right? Where you go other places, you see out of time and space. That is a way, in fact, many customs of indigenous shamanic journeys that they actually initiate the fever on purpose to have this experience. So I think that's a great example of our relationship of our psyche, of our spirit to biology itself, and why it's here, this great beautiful machine to teach us lessons on how we deal with conflict, trauma, tragedy, and all the emotions of why we come here in the first place.
Well, I agree. It's just not, the human body is not anything that I've really researched. It's not. It's to me, it's a fantastically awesome avatar, and I don't have enough knowledge. I don't have that base of knowledge like you guys do on the deal. When it comes to matters of my body, I'm basically living in faith. I'm living in faith that it's going to take care of itself. Things are going to be okay. You know, I'm really blue collar in my background and in my environment. And what I mean is, like, way out here in the country, people walk things off. The last thing on anybody's mind way out here where I live is to go to a doctor for anything. Is to go to a hospital. I mean, you hurt yourself, you walk it off. And I've seen it apply. I've literally seen it applied. I've seen people get hurt bad, and then and people in the community come together. You know, we're kind of spread out, but they come together and say, hey man, look, hey man, check this out, walk this off. Hey, eat this. I just made this stew. Eat this right here. I said, you need to come walk this off. You know, and it's I've seen people walk off some horrible shit. And it's almost as if the act alone is a type of faith, and that the avatar follows suit. It's almost as if the avatar is already correcting whatever the problem is by the very fact that you still need the avatar to walk it off. So it's but I see the exact opposite with city folk. And I don't want to sit here and denigrate anybody, but I have literally watched people atrophy because they do exactly what the doctor tells them, and they go lay up in a hospital for 2 weeks, not realizing that if you would have been walking for 2 weeks, you'd have been healed 5 days ago. But they lay in a hospital for 2 weeks and it seems like hospitals just really, they have this antipathy toward exercise. And I know that they tell you to go get up and walk around for about 30 minutes and then go back to your hospital bed. I've seen that recently, but no, man.
Jason, hopefully your ass isn't showing to the whole world, though. The gown you're in.
What do you mean?
Well,
yeah.
In the hospital gown, you can't even go walk around. You feel like a total idiot.
Yeah, well, see, it seems like to me it's counterproductive to tell somebody that you just need rest, because the act of rest is sending signals out to the construct that rest must be required. Therefore, it creates a feedback loop where you're not even healing. You're literally resting your body. Everything's in stasis. Everything's done. But actually using the avatar to do things that need to be done, even though the avatar has just been injured. The avatar has just been, I've seen it happen. I've seen people, I've done it myself. I've hurt myself bad and just totally ignored the fact that I may have just broke my leg, and I just keep on walking, keep on doing what I'm doing, and everything's fine. Out here in the country, we walk it off.
We have a lymphatic system, Jason. But Bear, I just laughing because how many coaches told you coming up, just walk it off?
Yeah. No, actually the saying was rub dirt on it and it'll be fine. The most important, I think, aspect of my background for medicine was I played football for many years, and then I followed that with being a full contact fighter. And I appreciate your comments, because that's exactly the way I approach things. Just rub some freaking dirt on it and you'll be fine. And then, my first foray into the practice of medicine was actually in emergency medicine. And that was kind of good too, because I actually saw the plus side of the conventional medical system, and that, people were bleeding to death, getting their hearts going again, and, just keeping them in their bodies. And in those cases, drugs and things were appropriate. So that was my first experience for about 5 years before I, jumped over the fence there. And what was also healthy about that, my kids and everything growing up, and my wife would say, hey, Bryden just did this or whatever. And I'm like, well, is he bleeding to death? I mean, I wasn't overly callous, but I had sort of a, if something wasn't life threatening, it's like, okay, we can probably deal with this. Just like you say, walk it off. I think we've become very weak and very afraid. And that's why we run off to doctors. And I always tell this story when I was in my private practice all those years, the first thing I told everybody that came in to see me is, look, you don't really need to see me. And my job is to make you realize that. And, we had our ways to treating people physically, to keep them in their bodies if that was the case. On the other hand, when they came out the other side, it's because a whole bunch of light bulbs came on and we helped them accomplish that. And then their biology followed suit. And we saw people routinely come through things that were supposedly death sentences, we'll say.
I do want to stress one thing, though. This biocomputer does require, for its software to properly work, requires the hardware to be charged and efficiently running. And one thing Bear was talking about when we were getting into water and sort of how we go from the fire to the air to the water to the earth, a very, very important element that we do require for our cells to function are called the tissue salts or cell salts. And Bear can explain this better, but I think I would really love for your audience to understand this. This is crucial stuff that we just don't have in our food really anymore because of big ag and the commercialized food system. And so by having these tissue salts supplemented, or if you plant, grow your food in good organic matter, you can of course get those from your food, but it's essential for this biocomputer to operate correctly. And I just want to throw this out we do sell these on, this is just, I'm not trying to hawk to your audience, but I just want to let you know, Jason, we're offering a 10% off discount for first time purchasers for Archaix community. If you use the code Archaix, you get your first purchase 10% off. If you've never been to our store before. So we're offering that to your community to come check us out. And one of those things we do sell are the tissue salts, which are extremely important.
Well, explain. I mean, I might get it too. Are you talking about like I don't use table salt on anything. I use Himalayan pink salt on everything I eat. I love Himalayan pink salt. But is that what you're talking about? These salts that have all these extra minerals and stuff that table salt doesn't have?
The tissue salts are compounds of elements, and they represent, there's 12 primary ones. There's more, but there's 12 primary ones that represent the 12 organ systems of the body, the 12 constellations above our head. That number 12 keeps reappearing over and over. You guys threw out.
We have the freeze. This kind of happens sometimes because he uses the Elon Musk system. So sometimes the satellite. So
you guys are way out of the country like I am too. So
okay, sorry if you lost me.
You're back.
Okay, so I was trying to explain a fever. So a fever, an alternative doctor would say, well, it's the body's brilliant way of raising the heat to kill pathogens. Well, that's really not true. Because again, pathogens do not exist in nature, only organisms that support are getting well. And when you know what you're doing and how to work with them, then they become non-problematic. So in the case of, say you're deficient of something called ferrum phosphoricum, which is one of the 12 cell salts, we'll call them, different than Himalayan salt. That is responsible for carrying the resonance that is conveyed to the cells that allow them to carry oxygen to the tissues of the body. And let's just say you have a deficiency in that, then what's going to happen is the body is going to speed up its pulse in order to deliver oxygen in sufficient quantities to the body. And that would be, like say you have a job for 10 guys out on a crew, you only have 3 guys. Well, the 3 guys are going to have to work a lot faster. And so the pulse speeds up. Now, when the pulse speeds up, that creates friction, which creates heat, which creates fever. Now, let's just give another example. Let's say you're in the tropics. You don't normally live there. And the atmosphere is, very much impregnated with moisture. Now you're going to be breathing that in and carrying more moisture in your body. It's going to, create an imbalance if you're not used to it. And then the body is going to have to get rid of some of that moisture. So what it's going to do again is speed up the pulse. It's going to create, fever and chills. And then on the aftermath of those chills are actually muscular convulsions that make you sweat and get rid of water. So the body has these brilliant ways working with these capacitors, or what we call the 12 primary tissue salts. And each of those tissue salts is actually representative of a resonance that is projected by the constellations in the sky clock overhead. And if you look at the constellations and the metaphors used to describe those constellations, for instance, Taurus, Aries, the ram and all that kind of thing, those are actually metaphors in order to describe the embryological unfolding and functioning of the body. And you start in spring with Aries. We won't go through all of them, but Aries, actually, they talk about the ram and the horns. Well, that's actually describing the third ventricle in the brain that connects the pineal and the pituitary. It's a water conduit canal that receives that first spark from consciousness. That's that first rung of the etheric mechanism, again, that so-called hydrogen fire level. And then that spark of electricity is carried down to Taurus. And then each one of those, if you understand each of the constellations and the 12 salts involved, creates a resonance. It creates a body part and the function of that body part. And then from there, that resonance is carried down through the same mechanisms and stored in the capacitors, which is the resonance of the electrical system that is stored and provided by the cell salts. We take those into our body. They need to be in our bloodstream all the time. And then the cells pick up on that resonance, and then they know what to do with it. If you're deficient in any of those things, then you're going to have symptoms because of that.
And can I just add this? So what they call malaria, which they try to pin on a mosquito, is exactly this. I was actually asking Bear, what would be the cell salt you would want to take if you were going someplace like that? And if you're, say, I'm coming from the Pacific Northwest and I'm going down to, I don't know, South America. You remember what it is? Someone was asking in our community, and I couldn't remember.
Well, you'd want ferrum phosphoricum, first of all, so you
Okay.
get more oxygen in the tissues. You're going to want to take some other salts that are going to open up the pores of the body so that they can release the toxins, release the moisture overload. That's going to be calcium phosphoricum, or sulfuricum rather. And there's a number of things. It becomes a little bit more individualized the better you get at using these things. But that's just one example how a deficiency of the natural capacitors, or the elements that we're supposed to be getting up from the ground, that are then conjugated by plants and making them available to us. We do have a bit of an issue these days, because these cell salts are in deficient levels, in the soil itself, which brings into why we do what we do here. We have a farm. We practice biodynamic and permaculture farming so that we can not just grow things, but actually build healthy soil for 7 generations down the road while we're using the soil, and make sure that those elements are available to future generations so that they can be healthy, not only so they don't get sick, but so that they can use their vehicle for which it was really intended, which is to have an experience that is going to rapidly expand their soul evolution.
And one way you can think of this too is like electrolytes, right? Like if you're doing a crazy long hike and you're sweating out in high temperature and you're sweating out all those salts, what will start to happen? You can get dizzy, you can get fever, you can lose consciousness. That's how crucial these salts are. Is that connected to as well, the electrolytes concept, Bear?
Yes. And when you understand this, you start to look at things like the astrological sciences in a different way. It's not like just doing people's charts and predicting and doing all this kind of deterministic stuff, but you're really understanding the functions of the realm. And again, we are microcosms of that. And the projections of the realm, which make everything function within our domain, also are the exact mechanisms that make our body work, and they're all interconnected. That's why we cannot cut ourselves off from our external ecology, which includes what's overhead that, you know, people rarely look up and ponder anymore because they're always looking down at their cell phones.
Yeah, I'm a little distracted right now. I'm checking out this distillation setup you got behind you. This what is all this?
So I'll give you a quick tour here. Let's see, which way am I going?
I see the pressure gauge. It's a pressure gauge connected to a brass.
Yeah. So I got all sorts of things. I've got acoustic sonicators. You know, I've got something mixing right over there, an overhead stir. I do, you know, different old school distillations with some of this equipment over here. And behind me, you know, more sophisticated distillation mechanisms like roto vapes and things. And what I grow outside then makes its way into these are just things I have put up and everything with things I grow. And there's my dehydrator cabinet.
Wow, that's impressive. Impressive.
And
wow.
Inside there are all the things that we've been picking outside. And then if you go, I hope this isn't taking too long.
No,
and then if you go down here, then a lot of the things also that I'm putting up, you know, that's fresh plant matter and all these urns here that are
those ceramic.
Yeah, they are. They're fermentation vats, and I take fresh plant matter and ferment it. You know, before I dry out. The stuff I dry out is for teas and things that I make, but the fermentation then is after the fermentation releases a lot of goodies from the plants. Then I put it through the different distillation mechanisms, and especially these days, I use a lot of acoustics, which is some of these things here that ultrasonically break down plant cell walls and release all the goodies. So it's kind of like it's 21st century alchemy is what it is.
Are you guys selling? Are you making things you sell, or?
Yeah, we are. And the reason, you know, we aren't vitamin salesmen, and we rarely even talk about our own stuff on our podcast. But the reason why we do this is we've created a permaculture farm, and we believe in full circle permaculture, which means, okay, you're farming, you're growing stuff. But the big thing that really prevents a lot of people doing that, which we believe is the ultimate solution for decentralization and taking our world back, you know, community by community. But what we're showing is that in a few acres of land, not only can you grow stuff, but you can create a business out of it and finance yourself. So other than, you know, unlike a lot of large nutraceutical corporations, we're actually growing, practicing old school alchemy, giving things new technological twist, and then putting out things that not only finance us, but actually help people maintain health in their bodies.
Interesting. We're yeah, I didn't even know we were going to be, I didn't even really, I remember y'all telling me like 6 months ago that you guys were growing things, you had products, but I never even looked at them. I'm interested in the right salts. I keep seeing a controversy in the chat between Himalayan pink salt and the Celtic salts. What is your opinion on what is the difference and which one would be better?
I'll answer that real quick. I think Himalayan salt is great because it's a natural salt, and it's a complete balance of a lot of things. I prefer Celtic salt or inland sea salt because it has more of the 4 types of magnesium available compared to Himalayan salt. I think it's a little pure. And then those 4 magnesiums are really what make a lot of other things work. But Himalayan salt is great. I use it for a lot of things.
I was going to say, and I'm going to learn that Himalayan salt is not as good from Celtic after I just bought a barrel of this.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. All right.
Some say they stain it pink, like if you're not getting it from a good source. So you just have to make
Yeah.
sure that you got it, or that it's rust is from where the
I
pink's
just
coming.
I just won't use I won't the iodinized the white table salt that's in restaurants, and I just won't even touch that. I won't even mess
Yeah,
with
I
it.
like Celtic salt myself. I like it really coarse too. And I've found that when I'm doing long hikes and stuff, I'll bring a vial of that and I'll put it in my water, and it's just phenomenal. Just totally recharges you.
You know,
Well, I guess
we're
I gotta reinvest in that because I guess I mean the Celtic the Himalayan pink salt I bought sacks and sacks and sacks of it, but I have a grinder, but most of the pieces are like this big,
yeah.
and my grinder breaks it down into digestible deals. But I'll probably just keep that as a backup now. But now you got me interested in getting some Celtic salt.
It's good stuff. Don't throw it away. Again, I use it myself. I just prefer some other salts over that.
Oh, it would still be excellent for a preservative. I'm just talking about, yeah, I can keep it for all kinds of purposes. But as far as putting it on my food, I may get some of that Celtic salt from you
Yeah.
guys.
Just maybe a final comment about salts before we move on is that every plant has these salts in it. So, for instance, when I go out and pick our herbs, we'll put them through a process, but then at the end, we'll recover the salts. So after we extract all the goodies out that people would think of or what you need in a plant, maybe the particular chemistries and things that make herbs work the way they work. Well, we recover the salts because the salts are in a very unique proportion and amount for that particular plant species. And as we were explaining before, the cell salts carry the resonance that create the form and function. Well, the particular unique balance of salts in any plant is actually what makes that plant do what it does. And without those salts, the plant wouldn't be the species of plant that it is. So if you recover those salts and you have those in your formulas, now you have a complete plant medicine. And in old school alchemy, of course, we separate the three parts of a plant, which are the soul, the spirit, and the body. And we call that the mercury, the sulfur, and the salt. But what we're really talking about with the mercury is that spirit that moves through all things, the prana, the chi, whatever you want to call it, that is available in every single little pinpoint in the atmosphere around us, and is constantly obeying every wish we have and command through our thoughts. And even with plants, is attracting those elements from the atmosphere. And then those elements, again, create everything that makes us unique. So you want to have those plant cell salts in your preparations. You don't want to throw out the plant matter after you've done the extractions. And in the case of ultrasonic acoustics, which I use a lot these days, it actually releases those salts in a very efficient way so that you get them in your remedy. But more importantly, it's an understanding of how all life in the realm functions. And then when you look at the third element I didn't talk about, which is the sulfur, that's the soul. That is the particular characteristic or the oversoul soul of a plant that makes that species different from another species of a plant. Or in the case of people, it makes us unique in this whole universe compared to any other person, because we all have our unique formula of the proportion of these salts.
Well, it's got me thinking too. Salt is crystalline in nature, right? So that's a resonance of memory or of information stored there. Just like Superman's cave, right, where he goes with the crystals to talk to his to his alien compadres. And this is important to remember here. What we talk about a lot is that in the limitations of modern chemistry based on atomic theory and magic BBs, and this idea of like passing electrons, and all that is still quantitative in nature. And what we're talking about is a qualitative science. So we're talking about literally impressions in the crystalline nature of these information, this information. So it's way beyond the limitations that we get with, sort of atomic chemistry.
And crystallization's an important concept, because if we are fixated on the South Pole exclusively, in other words, the superstition of materialism, where we think that's all there is, and we're like our conventional scientists trying to find where the energy and the matter is, not understanding the energy created the matter. Well, when we're fixated with that level of belief, then we are going to be exclusively holding our consciousness on the South Pole, which creates a crystallization to the point where we'll reach that, shelf life experience where there's no mana, there's no prana keeping the crystals together. So you have to constantly be, at that equator, acknowledging source and taking a co-create or a proactive stance in what you experience on the ground. If you're just experiencing or focused on one end or the other, you're going to have problems. And over crystallization is what's happening in our world, today, with our focus on AI and synthetic Wi-Fi's and everything else. That's of course what some people are trying to lead us into.
Interesting. That's all interesting. So, what? I've never seen this product line, and I had no idea that you're a mad scientist in a lab creating all these things. So I'm kind of interested in now. And if you would send me a link by email so I can post it in the description box, because I'm going to check it out myself.
Well, like I offered you, Jason, on the last AlfaCast, please go through our product line, and anything that interests you, we'd love to send you a care package, a gift package, to check out some of our stuff. Really are sort of, and I mean, obviously I don't want to just toot our own horn, but Bear's been in, and his wife have been in the alternative health scene since the 70s, and I've been in it for a couple decades now. And I will say we're at the top escalon of the alternative health world in terms of what we offer. And so, we take all this stuff ourselves. Like, we make this for us. And then that's how this whole company started, is because Bear had his private practice as a biotrained physician. He was doing all this for his clients. And we said, maybe it's time to start providing this to the public, to others out there, and getting your information out of your head to the world. So that's why we launched AlfaVedic. That's why we ended up doing the podcast. He didn't want to go out in the world and do this business. He was quite happy being in the private, and he was quite busy being in the private. But we felt it was time, as the Great Awakening is rolling out, that people start to get access to this stuff. So, and we're continually progressing forward. Like, Bear isn't just, isn't content offering stuff he was doing in the 80s and 90s. Like, he's constantly pushing forward and progressing with new technology, like the sonicator he was showing, and whole new formulations. So it's exciting to be involved in this, because there's nothing that makes me happier than seeing people get healthy.
Well, I'm sorry, Dr. Bear, but if you were trying to maintain a little autonomy and some be behind the scenes, you shouldn't have come on Archaix, because there's like 19 Archaix groups that are going to broadcast all this. You're going to be, so it's a little late for that.
That ended in 2017 when we did our first recording, and I was like, okay, we're going for it. So,
part of my past too is that when I went into private practice, I went through, conventional. I did my first certification at Stanford, and then went to a 4-year naturopathic college and chiropractic college, just because I wanted to kind of leave no stone unturned. Then studied a lot with the original biotrain schools in Germany, which is where a lot of this originated from, and in Europe. A lot of that's all been made unavailable to generations getting training now. It's all been suppressed. So I was fortunate to get some of that. But the important thing is I had an experience where I was able to develop some protocols clinically that were really helping a lot of folks. And because they were, I had to take my practice into private. We had very international, large practice, always booked years in advance, actually 2 years in advance. and people would come in with serious conditions. Now, what was curious about that is it also attracted a good number of so-called elite families to me, you know, people that were first folks on the moon, you know, owning NFL franchises, people that are way up in the hierarchy of the International Monetary Fund and the banking industry. So we got to be good friends with a lot of these folks. Some of them you'd actually maybe consider kind of sinister, but when
Illuminati confirmed.
But when you get to know them personally, they're nice people, and if they respect you because you're helping them, then you develop relationships. And we'd have some animated discussions about my philosophy versus theirs. But you know, we're all friends. But the point is that I had to keep under wraps, because if you are having success with things you're not supposed to have success with, then they come after you. And in my career, I saw many doctors like myself over the years that let's just say had accidents, premature demises and things. So I just wanted to do what I did and keep private and not go public with it. And so coming out a few years ago at Mike's urging, you know, it was a little bit of a stretch for me.
Yeah, that goes with, that's not just in the medical field. It's anytime you have something that's absolutely the antipode of what the established narrative is, it says they really don't care until you try to go mainstream with it. Even if you try to commercialize something, man, that is in disagreement with the status quo, I've seen many people thrive and do all and set up their own little micro economies. They set up their own little paywalls. That's why behind paywalls, just like mine, Archaix TV, I hardly ever push it, but Archaix TV, $6 a month. But that paywall allows me to discuss topics for which I could never talk about on YouTube. And I'm able to have 175 videos on there, and not one of them has ever been censored because it's behind a paywall. The establishment knows, okay, he put it behind a paywall. It's not mainstreaming. You're not going to get a mainstream audience behind any paywall. So yeah, I agree. I understand exactly what you're talking about. It's even Archaix. There's a lot of people that are critical of me and saying, how can you be telling us the truth? Look how popular you've become on so you must be working for the man. So, and they don't realize, okay, I've had 3 videos. I talked about 2020. I was in the hospital. You know what I mean? I've gone into detail about what happened. I filmed what was going on in there, and YouTube took my video down. Max Egan and I, we did a real deep video on reset cities. We were talking about nothing. We were talking about things that were commonly known, underground facilities in the United States that have been operable since the 60s and 70s. Max Egan's name, though, is what triggered it. YouTube took the video down. So I had a video where a guy recently admitted to working with law enforcement to have me put in jail for some bullshit. I got out immediately, and he got on YouTube bragging about it, and a bunch of people were criticizing him about that. And when the very next day I got out and I saw it, and I told the whole community who he was. Man, this is the guy right here. Yeah, man, he's no good. But it's so weird how I have no idea how it happened. But he complained to YouTube, got me a strike on some fair use stuff, and it just blows my mind. And this is a guy that borrows clips from hundreds, maybe 1,000 movies by now, and never got a copyright strike for any of that. But just by saying his name and showing his face, when he had just freely admitted all this stuff in another video, I don't know what he did, but he got me a strike. But my point is this: I've already been censured a whole lot. That's why I have Archaix TV. That's why as soon as YouTube rears up and tells me something I don't want to hear, I have no problem exporting 800 videos onto another platform. I'll be gone. I'll be gone just like that. I've been going through it. Yeah, I believe me, YouTube's not been been real commiserating with me. So I believe me, I'm ready for the exodus as soon as it needs to happen. Right now, it hasn't happened.
One thing we're doing is we're backing everything up on Cordal, and I know you have some members in your community that like Cordal, which is that a decentralized network, and it's completely censorship proof. So Jason Crow, who's one of the founders, and I'm full disclosure, I'm one of the co-founders of it. He just hit me up actually and said he's creating a new system that'll help auto upload all our videos, and we could set that up for you. So basically it'll just auto backup all of your videos. You just have to drop them into this folder on his cloud, and then it will upload them over time onto Cordal, and then it's completely immutable and impossible to take down. So you don't have to worry about if your hard drives fail at your house or if your servers fail, because that's, a great way to do it as well. Just host everything yourself and push it out through your own website. But the thing is, these things fail over time. Like, especially like these drives, like these lacy drives where I back up all our AlfaCast and stuff. Over time, these will fail. The newer ones are better. Like these newer SSDs. These are much better, and I know you send these out, Jason, right? But eventually,
well, not those, but like this is 4 terabytes. This is a real tiny one. It's 4 terabytes.
4 terabytes.
And it takes a 4 terabyte drive to have all the Archaix information. I'm talking about 1,000 videos, 480 like articles post, 50,000 images, over 50,000 PDFs of old books. This is what I send out to people, but it's a special deal for people who want all the shit. Yeah. What you're holding is a 2 terabyte drive.
This is a 4.
Oh, it is a 4?
This is a
okay,
4
I have a bunch of those. I have a bunch of those.
SanDisk makes it in a 4 now, and it's really, this thing's badass. However, in the end, I think it's both ways. Go both. Like, have the hard drives, but then also have it on like an immutable network. So God forbid your house burns down, you lose this. You can go in and just pull it all off again. That's the beautiful thing about technology, is if it's used correctly, right? Like we're crowdsourcing this all together. We're helping each other out by storing each other's data. That is a powerful thing. So I'm a huge advocate for doing both. But we talk a lot about on our channel the law and what law actually is. But there's this idea of public versus private. And when you're contracting in the public, which is the land of custom, it's the land of corporatization, it's where its governments lie, which are just corporations, and where all of the sort of culture is and the custom, versus the private, which is where the sentient moral being lives, which is actually us, right? It depends on how you contract. So if you're out contracting in the public in ways, and then you go against those contracts, whether those are expressed or not, then they can come after you. But if you're in the private, then you're just contracting directly with whoever you're in the private with, the other sentient moral beings that that are your membership or whatnot, and they won't touch you. So we have a private membership on AlfaVedic.com. The same thing. You come in, you actually sign as the living man or woman. You come in and agree with our terms, and then you can engage with all of our content, and we don't have any worries about any nefarious beings coming in and taking us down, because we never contracted with them about this. But if you have a birth certificate, if you have or a social security number, if you have all these different licenses, well, guess what? You
registered to vote,
knowingly or unknowingly contracted with that system, and then you have allowed them then to come into your lives based on the services and different benefits you get as your parents, who you were the property of your parents. They signed you up for that, whether they knew it or not.
But, it even has deeper ramifications for our health. And I went down these rabbit holes starting in the 70s and tested the system, got into a little trouble along the way doing it, but that's how you learn. And, people would ask me, they'd say, well, you're a doctor. Why are you interested in all this legal stuff? Well, the fact is if you have a belief system that there is something outside of you that has authority over you, then you are now compromising your entire being, including your health, and that is going to show up in your body. So the only way to really regain perfect and lasting health is to understand, number one, that it is under your direction exclusively, and nobody has the right to take what's yours, tell you what to do, or, and as Mike is explaining, the beautiful part of it is that these systems exist side by side, but it's up to us to understand and implement, the original way our republic was established, including our God-given protections and rights. And when you go back to that, then wonderful things happen, not only in your life, but in your body as well.
Wow. That's it's almost, it kind of reminds me, it takes me back to my Southern Baptist days, reading the New Testament. And I see like the Ephesian Knight. I had done a video about that concept and how mentally you can spiritually invoke different pieces of armor, and the belief that those concepts actually protect you is absorbed into the avatar as actual protection. So it's same concept, but it's about 17 centuries ago.
So what we're learning is that there are real mechanisms behind creation. We've been given the key to the kingdom, and the only thing we have to realize, you're either all in or you're all out. You can't ride the fence. You can't serve two masters. So if you want health in your body, then you have to reclaim your authority and what they say in some circles, retrieve your spirit from all the places that you've given it away.
Man, it's deep. It's deep. I agree 100%. I say it all the time to my community. It's 2024. It's too late to be polite. You can't ride the fence anymore. Now you have to be very, very assertive about what you believe and what you hold to be true, because it has everything to do with the trajectory that you're traveling right now. And if you change the fundament of any belief system that you have, you better have good evidence for why you're now believing something else, because belief is the motive force that sends the avatar on all these different journeys that we call life. And anything that we suffer on a daily basis is exactly in proportion to anything that we have put into the field as a belief about how our life is going to unfold. I'm total agreement. Absolutely.
Yeah. And interesting that the word lies in belief.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
right. Well, I'll say this: we have the power of Recision in this reality, so we can always repent, as the Nazarene, as Jesus explained. Right? You have the story of the parable of the prodigal son, right? And
What?
he goes off and lives this life of darkness and sin, supposedly, or whatever we call sin, but then comes back and repents, and he is it's rejoiced around that idea. And that's what the message is there, is no matter what, if we come to an understanding, a new understanding of how this reality works, but we strayed, that's okay, because in an instant, in a flash of repentance, we can be right back to start and be in the grace of God, being back into a perfect state of what we want for our life. So really important for people to understand. And this is deeply ingrained in the law as well. And so, yeah, it's a truly divine system.
The wonderful thing is we don't have to fight anybody. We don't have to get angry or be afraid of anybody. All we have to do is understand. We need awareness. And I think we said the other day, awareness is the most important nutrient that is lacking in most people.
Yes.
So, yeah, it just takes care of itself. And anybody who goes contrary to natural design, for instance, say somebody wakes up one morning and says, oh, I think I'll develop some things that are going to kill everybody, and, take all their stuff and, a lot of the things that we suffer under presently. Well, at that exact moment, they have cut themselves off from the renewal side of creation, which again is that compression of informational fields that comes from pure, source that then creates our experience, our bodies, and so forth. And now you're in a situation where you are not self-sustainable. And it also explains why they have gone so far down that road. When I say they, I'm sure your audience can fill in the blanks, whoever you think they are. At that moment, then they need us for batteries. They need us to be afraid. They need us to be angry. They need to whip up every lower chakra toxic emotion possible, because that's what they feed off of, because they have lost the ability to create their own energy as they've gone down that road way too far. So we don't have to fight them. We don't have to bring them down. All we have to do is be where we want to be.
Yeah. And I would say the AIX is the field that is driving that, and they worship it, and they are lost. But even
I get it.
They can even they can go through the process of Recision and repent and come back, right? As Darth Vader did in Star Wars.
Oh, don't you're hitting all my points, man. Stop it. So it's yeah. What thought? I had a thought just a second ago. I totally forgot my thought. Oh, I need one of my moderators, if they have it, to post the link to do you guys have a single link that opens up? Cause I want to go look at some of these things. Cause I've got interest too, man. I'm trying to stay healthy too. But do y'all have a link, or do you just go to AlfaVedic?
I've posted a few times. It's just alfavedic.com/shop. If you just go to
one of my moderators post that link in there, because I can copy it. I'll be able to find it toward the end of the video, copy it, and I can put it in the description box, and I can go check it out myself. But as far as what we're talking about, there's two things I want to say. Dr. Bear, you mentioned about the power of awareness. This was the principal message of Judge Thomas Troward in 1901, 1902, and 1903 when he put out a couple of very fantastic books. Judge Thomas Troward literally wrote that the awareness of personal spiritual power creates that spiritual power. He wrote that the awareness that there is a cure for whatever ails you literally creates the cure for whatever ails you. He says the key to a spiritual inheritance is being aware that a remedy exists, whether you know what the remedy is or not. He says the spirit overrides. The spirit is connected to source, and source already knows all the recipes, all the cures, all the programming. You don't have to know these things. This is the beauty of spirit. And I encourage Book Tree Press in San Diego. You guys know my Archaix veterans. You already know that's my publisher. But he publishes reprints from the 1700s and 1800s. This is what his specialty is. And he has the books of Judge Thomas Troward. He has the Edinburgh lectures on mental science, the Door lectures on mental science. These books and Thomas Troward's own writings are fantastic because they're literally teach you that you do not need to know the medical minutia. All you need to do is be aware that these things are in the field, that they can already benefit you. And that awareness creates that benefit if you'll seize it. That's all I wanted to say. Yeah.
And that was the original scientific method, where we would have experiences, maybe do things within those experiences and observe the results. We call that empiricism. And then draw conclusions, as part of classical logic. Then we'd all compare notes as far as what our experiences are. And then, you'd make some good assumptions based on that. But what we did is we deviated down that mechanistic role. So instead of just being participants and observers in the world, now we come up with all these theoretical constructs that are overly convoluted and academic, and focus on those to the point.
And they're not even scientific, because they don't even go by observation anymore. They go by doctrine.
Thank you. And what you're saying is so logical. Is there any other technology that we're aware of where you don't have to have the ability to know how to turn that technology on. Where's the switch? How do I use this?
Yeah,
It's the same
everything.
thing. Our biology is a living organic technology. And if you don't point that technology towards source with your attention and focus, then there's no way you can be an active participant with that.
Yeah. Speaking of active participation, before we close this video, that was the other thing I want. When Mike was talking, I can only remember one thing, and that was the awareness deal about with Thomas Troward. But when Mike was talking, we were discussing criticism, like how Jason, how's Archaix even still on YouTube? If you're telling us the truth, how do they allow that? Okay, now I want to get back to that, because one of the things that has made Archaix different from many other other channels and other putting all this information out there is that one of my principal messages is listen, man, the world is a fallen place. This is artificial intelligence is taking over. Every option you're giving, you have to choose between the lesser of two evils. My principal message is not one of revolt or rebellion or fighting the system. No, my principal message in all my videos is do not participate. Be the observer. Flow through this experience doing the things that you were set here to do. If you don't have the power to change the world, then why expend your energy doing it? You should change your world. You should change the world of those that are your loved ones and your friends and those that are closest around you. But to change the world is an admission that the world isn't the way it was designed to be. I believe we're immortals. We're passing through this experience. We're not here to change the world. I don't want to live in a golden age society. I would be bored as F. It's just not the type of utopian society is a ideal. But every philosopher knows that once an ideal is realized, it's dead. It no longer holds value. So it's just like Plato's Republic. He wrote a fantastic republic, but if a civilization ever truly ran the way Plato said, that civilization wouldn't last very long. Everybody would grow bored, and then there would be so much infighting trying to create controversy just to have something to do. So yeah, it's that's what I want. That's the point I wanted to make. That's why Archaix has survived. I don't promote overthrowing the system. I don't name names of famous people and politicians that we know are dirty. I just talk about concepts.
You're talking about true anarchy here, which is funny because they've turned it to make it people think it's Molotov cocktails and revolt, but anarchy is actually exactly what you're saying. Go ahead.
Awakening.
And ideal is very mutable, and it should be changing along with our progression. I don't know about you, but what was ideal in my life, 50 years ago has changed quite a bit. And as a collective, I would guess that it's the same. What we consider an ideal society now won't be considered ideal down the road. So anyway, I agree with you, Jason, in that I don't want to be stuck in some crystallization of ideal concept. We just need to be free to experience, to create, and to learn from that.
Oh yeah. So either one of you guys got anything you want to say going out the door? Because I'm about to kick you off my channel.
Cancel.
Yeah, you got anything?
I just want to thank you. Thanks, Jason. We've had some amazing conversations on AlfaCast with you. Like Bear was opening, you're one of our crowd favorites for sure, community favorites. And thanks for having us on. We just would, really enjoy talking about this stuff. And like I said, bringing health awareness to those who are seeking truth, because there's a lot of occulted information around health and wellness. And, I would say the germ theory, we say this like on every show, the germ theory of disease, the false germ theory of disease is the linchpin of the system. And that's why they don't like us talking about it. But when we come to the understanding, the understanding that there isn't anything out there that is out to get us, we have all the power inside us and with each other too, because obviously the other insipid narrative around germ theory is that your neighbors get you sick when it's far from that, right? They can infect you with crazy, with dark ideas and emotions if you allow them to, but there's no particle that they're passing on that's going to make you sick. And when we can get beyond that superstition and understand really how reality works, then we can, as you always say on your channel, then live the hero's journey in a way where we create our own reality that's beautiful, and we can stay out of those dark reality tunnels, right? And we are the maker of our own reality. So thanks so much, Jason, for having us on. And once again, use the code Archaix at alfavedic.com/shop. If you're new to our shop there, you'll get 10% off on your first purchase.
Yeah, and we can demonstrate how resonance is the only true contagion, for good or bad. And we also can demonstrate how that creates physical matter. So it's not theoretical. It could be demonstrated. We do that in the practice of medicine, in the practice of herbology. And I just want to thank you too, Jason, because you're just doing phenomenal work. You're my favorite channel out there, and just your depth of knowledge is amazing. So thanks so much for doing what you do, and thanks for having us on today.
Man, it was fun. It was great. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out. And I don't know when, but somewhere in the near future, I will be in California again. I need to go visit Paul Tice every year. I go to Book Tree, and I know my father was talking about going to visit family. So I'm probably going to be going from California south to north, because our family is in Sacramento in the White Mountains, north in the Burleson area. So if I'm within a couple hundred miles, since it's going to be a road trip, I'll probably drop in on you guys if you want to. We can do a video on location.
Yeah, we'd love to see you, and you always have a place. You're always welcome, and bring your swim trunks or not, because we have private swimming holes here, and we end every work day with just jumping into the river. So love to see you here.
Awesome. It's Jeff Stout, I see he's in the house. I might have to jump over to Hawaii. That was my childhood buddy right there, Jeff Stout. He's in Hawaii. Got a big family now, but
awesome.
I raised my family in Hawaii.
And go to Hawaii. He's braver than I am. I just can't imagine. I'm a catastrophist. I just cannot imagine living on volcanic islands. But
I raised my family in Hawaii. We lived right on the side of Haleakala, so I know about volcanoes. Fortunately, it didn't go up while we were there.
Yeah, it's crazy. As we check out, I'll just give you one little fact. Sourcebook Project, William Corliss. 500 years of scientific reports all gathered together. I couldn't believe when I was reading about extinct volcanoes and what archaeologists found in the late 1800s. They found human skeletons in extinct volcano flues. So the volcanoes are older than you think. They had dried out, and humans were using them and living in them for a while. And they're deep underneath Hawaii, human skeletons. So it shows you that Hawaii has a very old antiquity for those skeletons to have been there. It's just something interesting. But I'm gonna go ahead and check out. Holler at you guys, and I will be going through your material, because I'm very interested in that, especially in some of the things that you guys make. But that's AlfaCast, guys, and give me till later today, and I will put the links to our previous videos on their channel. I'll put them in here. So I know a lot of people in my community haven't seen those videos. So I will put the links to the 3 or 4 videos I did on AlfaCast. I'll put them in the description box here with the store link, because I'm pretty interested in that. But I'll see you guys later.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks.
Oh, I cut him off in the midstream. Sorry about that. But those guys are great, and I just hit a 2-hour mark, and I'm floating in my bladder from drinking 3 bottles of water during this presentation, and I'm gonna go. But you guys check out the links. Give me about 15-20 minutes, and I'm gonna put the links to those videos. Because we did some really good chats on AlfaCast. You might want to check those videos out. And going to hit my my outro video. And tomorrow I'm gonna have Affy You guys know Affy. I've told you about Affy. Affy sent me some really compelling material on belief systems in Islam, and it's not all about the Quran. It's not all that you think it is. Tomorrow we will be talking about Affy. I've already talked to her a couple times, and she sent me some amazing PDFs, some things to look at. We're going to be going through that tomorrow. We're going live again tomorrow, and then Wednesday is Paul Cook. We had to reschedule Paul Cook due to a storm, and then Wednesday is Paul Cook. And don't think you're going to get anything Thursday because I'll be in flight. Let me go and hit. I'm going to go and hit one little outro.
This Archaix thing, but AIX is certainly worth looking into.
I'm most impressed that Jason is not going to tell you something. He's going to show you.
Archaix shows us if you record enough facts, the answers just stare you in the face.
A man who knows the facts is unafraid to joust with contrary opinions. That's Jason.
I can't have that dude on my show. You know how many guys I've had on here who are running from that dude? Be a mess.
Jason says being wrong gets us closer to being right.
You got to break free or die trying, guys.
Archaix showed me how to see if there was a tater in them onions.
Listen, Archaix isn't one guy against the Matrix that's dumb. No, it's a family of souls waking up.
If I've learned anything since finding Archaix, if something is true somewhere, it's probably true everywhere.
Jason said if it's true, we can see it from multiple different vantage points.
So I broke pattern and went up there and slapped that guy. Total pattern break.
If you get stumped, you got to break pattern.
Jason says you don't need to know how to read, you need to know how to think. I think that's where I went wrong.
Jason figured it out. People are smart and they can decide for themselves if something is true or not.
No, I don't have anything to hide. I just don't want Jason anywhere near my accounting files.
There's a bunch of us who don't listen to Archaix. We signed a different deal. I think it's AIX or something.